Hi and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're all having a nice week, a much cooler week. Last week it was 39 degrees. It was just unbearable. I can't bear hot weather anyway, and 39 degrees. I was at work, it was just so hot. Weirdly, that was on the Thursday, then on the Saturday it was 19 degrees, a full 20 degrees cooler than it had been on the Thursday. I just can't wait for autumn to be here. I just cannot wait. Anyway, today is not moaning about weather video day. It is talking about the books that I read in the month of July. Cheers. I read 14 books in the month of July, and I've grouped them into, not in the order in which I've read them, but into the following order. Books that I've read that aren't here, tiny weeny books, fiction, and non-fiction. So let's start with the books that I've read that aren't here. So the first one is an audiobook, and it is Period Power, Harness Your Hormones and Get Your Cycle Working for You by Maisie Hill. Now, very rarely does a one-star book appear on this channel, but sadly, this for me was a one-star book. I listened to this with such high hopes and such excitement, thinking this was going to be the book that I've been waiting for. As you may know, I suffer horrifically from my periods. Every month I'm in terrible pain. Quite often I have to take a day off work or half a day off work. I'm always grateful for when my periods come at the weekend, because it means I don't have to take any time off work, because I'm literally bedbound with crippling pain that I cannot do anything about. Painkillers, hot patches, baths sometimes work, obviously can't have a bath at work, and yeah, horrible period of time. And this has been the way since I started my periods. Basically I had a brief sort of life of loveliness at university when my periods didn't affect me, but apart from that it's just been horrific. Anyway, so this book that I thought was going to be absolutely amazing, it's sort of on the tin it said that it was going to be able to tell you how to track your period, and tell you what sort of things you should be planning for. So it tracks your period and puts it into a seasonal situation. So like spring, summer, autumn, winter. What you should be putting in the spring of your cycle, what you should be putting in the winter of your cycle, what you should be doing to care for yourself in those cycles. So I was like, this is going to be amazing. I listened to it. I swear to God, the majority of it is about fertility. So obviously, in a book about periods, there is going to come points where it says, like, this is your most fertile, or periods are linked in with fertility. So I know that's going to happen, but the majority of this book was about fertility. So much so that I skipped like a massive hour and 20-minute section in the middle, because I was thinking, well, this must be the chapter about fertility, even though fertility had previously been mentioned. So I skipped it, and then from then on, even like in the bits where it's telling you what you should eat, there's still like a massive chunk within that thing saying what you should eat when you're pregnant, or what you should eat when you've just had a baby, or what you should eat. And like that, for me, that wasn't what the book was about. So I feel like it's been marketed wrongly, in that it should definitely have on the front cover or in the title somewhere that this is a book about fertility and how to fall pregnant and what to do when you're pregnant, etc, etc. Because for me, this book was a real letdown. So I've given it a 1 star. I don't doubt that it will be very, very helpful to other people who are interested in finding out about how you can fertility, etc, etc. But for me, I was just so disappointed, and yeah, I gave it 1 star, which very rarely happens. The only reason I finished it is because I was thinking it must be getting to the part where it's not about fertility soon. It must be. And yeah, it's just, for me, I listened to an audiobook, and it might be different in book form, but it was very, very hard to sort of navigate myself around that book, because I thought I was skipping a chapter about fertility, but it wasn't. There were still huge, massive chunks about fertility, pregnancy, and having a child, even in the chunks that particularly weren't about that. So yeah, very, very disappointing for me. Gave it 1 star. Boo, very disappointed. So that was 1 star. So I very rarely have 1 stars, but there we go. The next one is a picture book that I read while I was on holiday. This is Mixed, a colour story by Ari Chung. I read this on holiday when we went to the Lake District. We went on holiday to the Lake District this month. My cousin Laura and her daughter, 2-year-old daughter, well, almost 2-year-old daughter Delia, were on holiday with us, and she had some picture books, and she said, read this picture book, you'll absolutely loved it. And it's such a colourful, fun book called Mixed, about how there's 3 colours, the primary colours, red, yellow and blue, and how they all keep to themselves, etc. And they sort of have, reds have babies with reds and yellows have babies with yellows, and like they're all just segregated basically. And then one day a red falls in love with a yellow or something, and they have a baby, and then it's just lovely. It was just really, really lovely. And actually off the back of that, I have bought 2 copies of that, one for my sister's baby who has not yet been born, and one for Molly for her birthday, because I just feel like it's a really good message done in a really fun, accessible way. And yeah, I just thought it was lovely. So yes, I read that, I gave that 5 stars. That was very, very good. The next one was an audio book also that David and I listened to on holiday. This was Mortimer and Whitehouse, Gone Fishing, Life, Death and the Thrill of the Catch by Bob Mortimer and Paul Whitehouse. So this is a book off the back of a television series that's been made. Bob Mortimer and Paul Whitehouse are British comedians who are both in their late 50s, I believe now, and have had some serious health issues, both of which have had operations on their heart. Bob Mortimer has had a very serious operation on their heart, and after the sort of health concerns, they decided to sort of get fit, and by doing this, by going fishing and sort of like being a bit mindful about their life and stuff. So although the book is titled Gone Fishing, for me, it's not about fishing, it's about friendship, it's about caring for each other, it's about mortality, it's about staring death in the face and then recovering from what that's like. And David is very, very, very picky when it comes to audiobooks, and we had this massive long drive up to the Lake District, and I thought, well, why not listen to an audiobook? And I knew that he'd loved the TV series so much, and we thought, oh, well, we'll try the audiobook, and we both really loved it. There was actually moments in it where I felt quite moved to cry, because there's some absolutely beautiful descriptions of the British countryside and things like that. And I just feel like even if fishing isn't your thing, which it isn't my thing, this is still a book that's got so much more to give than that, and I was really, really impressed about how much I loved it. I gave it 4 stars, which is unheard of. I honestly thought it would be, I was almost doing it as like a book for David to listen to that he would enjoy, but we both loved it, and we didn't listen to any music the whole way up there or the whole way back, because we just spent the whole time listening to this audiobook and podcast. So yeah, really, really loved that. Gave that 5 stars. A real surprise for me, really, really big surprise. The next one, and then I've got 2 more audiobooks that I've listened to that aren't here. The first one is Till the Cows Come Home, A Lancashire Childhood by Sarah Cox. Sarah Cox is a radio presenter and TV presenter here in the UK. I find her very, very funny. I really like her style of presenting, and like she's very sort of, it's very friendly, and you feel like you're with a pal when you're listening to her or watching her. And yeah, I listened to this audiobook thinking it was going to be really great. To be honest, I just didn't really love it. I don't know if it's because I'd come to it off the back of the Whitehouse, the Gone Fishing one by Paul Whitehouse and Bob Mortimer, but for me, and I mentioned this in my currently reading or my at the moment, it just felt a bit like, you know, when you're at a dinner table round a friend's house or around a boyfriend's house or something, and they're all talking about memories that they had from when they were a child, and to begin with you're like, oh, that's really cute, it's really cute, and then it goes on and on and on, and you're like, oh, I'm feeling a bit left out now actually. Like it just felt like that, and like none of the memories were important enough for me, because they're obviously important to Sarah, it's her childhood, to sort of like lodge in my mind. And yeah, it was just wasn't for me. I gave it 2 stars. I didn't really love it. And then the last one I listened to was the Belle Sauvage, the Book of Dust, Volume 1. Listen to the audiobook of this because I'm working my way through all of the Dark Materials and the Book of Dust before the new Book of Dust comes out in October, the 2nd volume, and also before the BBC TV adaptation comes out, which I believe is coming out in like, it says autumn, so I don't know when abouts in autumn that'll be. Love this, love this. When I first got the Book of Dust, I got it in print and I read it, and I felt a bit let down by it. I think I'd maybe like built it up as something that was going to be amazing in my head, but what I've come to realise with this book is that the more I revisit it, and I've revisited it on audiobook, this will be my 3rd time, the more I grow to love it. And I really do love it, and I really love Malcolm, and I really love the storyline, and I love like the early beginnings of finding out about Lyra and the sort of prophecy around her. But yeah, for me it's like something to return to and just get more out of it. And the audiobook by Martin Sheen is just done so perfectly that if you are looking to revisit this before the new Book of Dust comes out, or before the TV series comes out, then please consider the audiobook, because it's absolutely amazing. He delivers it so wonderfully. His voices are amazing. He really speeds up when it's like tense bits, and yeah, it's just wonderfully done. And the more I listen to it, the more I enjoy it. And I would say like I'm on par with enjoying enjoying it as much as I enjoy his dark materials now, which is a shock to me because when I first read it, I think I gave it like 3.5 stars, but now I would definitely say it's 5 stars. Like, really love it. And that's all because of the delivery. Like, it's just been delivered so wonderfully. And on revisiting it, I feel like those books are particularly good to revisit because there's always stuff you missed the first time round, and there's stuff that you pick up having like knowing things that you know now. And yeah, I would definitely recommend the audiobook. So yes, gave that 5 stars. And then let's move on to the actual books that I've got here. So as I said, I've put them into, I'm aware I've spoken for ages about 4 books, but let's talk about these ones. So I won't talk about these very much because they're tiny little books. This is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's We Should All Be Feminists. This is her TED Talk on feminism that she delivered in, I think it's 2012. And yeah, really loved it, gave it 5 stars, often do that. Often do that, as in every time I read it, I give it 5 stars. Then we've got Africa's Tarnished Name by Chinua Achebe, sorry. And these are essays on the history, complexity and appropriation of continent from the father of modern African literature. Never read anything by him before, found it very interesting, gave it 3 stars. Another one by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is Dear Ijeawele, or a Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions. This is Chimamanda's letter to a friend who has asked her to give her advice on how to raise her daughter a feminist, with amazing suggestions, really good advice and just lovely stuff in there. And then a letter from Birmingham Jail by Martin Luther King. This is, it says here, the landmark missive from one of the greatest activists in history calls for direct non-violent resistance in the fight against racism and reflects on the healing power of love. I gave this 3.5 stars, I think I would say. What I will say about it is that there's a lot embroiled in there about religion. I'm not a religious person, and I feel like there's a lot in there sort of relying on religion, so I feel like it would have got higher. And it's hard, isn't it, because obviously Martin Luther King was a religious person, but for me that sort of brought it down a little bit, but enjoyed it nevertheless. So those are the 3 little ones. Then I think, oh god, well, I've got like really enjoyed some books this month. This was a book that I gave 4 stars and I've now bumped it up to 5 stars. This is Disobedience by Naomi Alderman. She is the author of The Power, which won the Women's Prize a few years ago. And this is a fantastic insight into life as an Orthodox Jew. You follow Ronit, whose father, who was a rabbi, who's died. They live in the Orthodox Jew suburb of London called Hendon, I believe it's called. And she is now living in New York, having sort of diverted away from the Jewish lifestyle, and is coming back because her father's died. And on coming back, she stays with her cousin David and his wife, what's her name? Esty. Esty and Ronit used to be lovers when they were younger. And yeah, it's just sort of really big insight into like, we didn't do much about other religions when we were younger, and I just find things like this so interesting, that you really get a sort of open window into what life is like as an Orthodox Jew. And also it's about friendship, and when that friendship develops into something more for one person but potentially not for the other person, and it's tense, and it's it revisits like Ronit's memories of her father and her childhood and what it was like growing up and what her life is like now compared to what it was, and just all done in a really lovely way. Like, I really loved the writing of it, and I just found it so amazing. And something else I love is that it is a book told from 3 different perspectives actually, and done in different font, which is such a simple thing but really excites me in a book. So Ronit's writing is done in sort of like Arial font, and then David and Esty, they share the same font, which is also just sort of telling in that they belong to one another, or particularly Esty belongs to David. And yeah, I just love like the little sort of things in there like that. But loved it, would definitely recommend it. Gave it 4 stars originally, but I've bumped it up to a 5 star. Another book I've given a 5 star is Swimming Home by Deborah Levy. This is my book club with my friends book that we're talking about this month. Got this as a recommendation from Simon after he did some summer reading. And this is about 2 families who go on holiday to a holiday resort in Nice. And on arriving, Joe, who is a poet, spots somebody swimming in the pool. And this girl's name is Kitty Finch, and she's a bit of an eccentric. She's sort of just swimming naked in the pool, unbothered, with green fingernails. She declares herself a self-proclaimed botanist, and it quickly becomes apparent that she is there because she has written a poem and she wants Joe to read it. And then you sort of find out about each other's lives, and there's a sort of like big event that it builds up to, and you're given, it's written in a way where you're finding out things that have happened at the end, and yeah, I just really loved it. It was super duper quick read, really quick read. I think it's only like just over 150 pages, but yeah, really loved it and would definitely recommend it. It's got that sort of like like heavy hot feel of like lots of people staying in one place at a really hot time and sort of all getting to know each other's routines and things like that. Really enjoyed it. Never read any Deborah Levy before, but definitely will be doing so in future, so very much enjoyed that. 5 stars. Then I got 2 super short teenage books out from the library. I was aware at the beginning of the month that I was running quite behind on my target. I wanted to read 150 books this year, and I was 10 books behind at the beginning of the month, and I thought, well, I'll use this month to read like a lot of little books, and I saw these 2 little books in the library and got them out. So the first one is Bernard Ashley, The Tiger on His Back, and this is about Sophia Drake, who's a teenager who wants to get a tattoo done on her leg, and after she has this tattoo done, there's a sort of bit of tattooist politics in that the person who did the tattoo on her leg didn't actually design the tattoo, or did he? As a boxer has also got that tattoo on his back, and there's sort of like a chase across London about this, and yeah, it was very simple, but I feel like quite enjoyable. I see what they've made these little books to sort of get people into reading and stuff, and I feel like this would be enjoyable, and it actually got a sticker on the back saying this book is super readable, which I would agree with, so that one. And then I've got another one called Home, which is by Lisa Allen Agostini. This is the 3rd place 2017 winner of the Caribbean Young Adult Literature, and this is about a Trinidadian teenager who is depressed, moving to live with her aunt and her aunt's partner in Canada, and sort of trying to come to terms with her depression and her panic attacks, whilst also trying to adapt to what it's like to be a Trinidadian in a vastly white community in Canada. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I started reading this, then went on holiday and didn't take it with me, and then come back to it and picked it up just as easily as I did. But yeah, I thought it was a really good sort of expression about a good account of depression, in that it wasn't like in that it was honest, and she would have these sort of like horrific breakdowns and then feel like, and then there wouldn't be any sort of like positive moments after that, because quite often there's not, and it just felt very true for me. And yeah, I enjoyed it, and I think I gave it 3 stars. And then the last 2 books are non-fiction books. The first one is Elizabeth Day, How to Fail, Everything I've Learned from Things Going Wrong. So I was sent this proof by Fourth Estate earlier on this year, and had heard of the podcast How to Fail by Elizabeth Day, but hadn't visited it, and thought, oh well, I'll pick this up, and started reading it, and it's just a really good sort of, I don't really hear the term self-help book sort of batted around so much anymore, but it's sort of like an assessment and a memoir on Elizabeth Day's life, talking about her failures, and not in a way where it's like, oh god, I wish I'd got that job, like a celebrating her failures way. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then off the back of reading this, I've started listening to the Elizabeth Day How to Fail podcast, which has got some amazing guests on it, including Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is one of my all-time faves. And yeah, I just feel like it's a really good way to look at your mistakes and think about how things went wrong and what you can learn from that. And I just feel like it's a really positive spin on like otherwise what could have been a very negative thing. And yeah, it was very readable, very enjoyable. God, I feel like I've said readable so much in this, but really enjoyed this very much. And then the last book I finished is literally, I finished it this morning, and we're going to be talking about this on my Patreon book club tomorrow. This is Hunger by Roxane Gay, which is a memoir of Roxane Gay's body. A horrific sexual assault happens to Roxane Gay when she is very young, and off the back of that, her sort of reaction to that is to make her body into a fortress, make her body inaccessible to others. And this is tied up with her relationship with her family, her relationship with food, friends, future partners, her job, everything. And it's written in these really short sort of chapters, or almost like little short essays about certain aspects of what it's like to be fat and what it's like to be recovering from a sexual attack. And I just found it amazing. I really thought it was amazing. Something that I'd seen that a lot of people had said is that the attack happens very early on in this book, and then her sort of like explaining how that affected her relationship with her body. And a few people had said to me, oh, it gets a bit repetitive because it's going on over that at all, but I did not find that at all. I really didn't find it repetitive. I found it sort of eye-opening with things that I hadn't even thought about, what it would be like for somebody with a larger body to live in this world. For example, travelling on an aeroplane, just having to sort of like get the ask a flight attendant for the belt extender, and just worrying about where you're going to sit on that plane, and just how everything becomes a bigger thing for you, and how you are absolutely riddled with worries about how your body is going to restrict you that day. And I was actually reading this alongside, which I haven't finished yet, a book called Happy Fat by Sophie Hagen, and she, strangely, I was reading about what it was like for air travel for Roxane Gay, and also what it was like for air travel for Sophie Hagen, who is a comedian and who was putting a sort of hilarious slant on this. And then I was coming back to this and reading like what it was like, not that what Sophie said isn't what it's like, but like hearing like the real nitty gritty, and like, yeah, it just really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I very much enjoyed it. It's hard to say you enjoyed a book about a woman's sexual assault and her relationship with her body afterwards, but just thought it was really well written and fantastic. So yes, I gave that 4 stars. So those are the books that I read in the month of July. 14 books, very pleased with myself. In August, I'm going to be reading the books that David picked me. I will link my August TBR down below. David picked me some books to read for the month of August, which I'm very much looking forward to, because it meant he pulled books off this shelf that I haven't even thought about for many years, I would go as far as to say. But that's it from me, and I will see you all again soon for another booktube video. Goodbye!